And that brings to an end a very special engagement planned as part of Russia's President Vladimir Putin's visit for the annual Indo-Russian bilateral summit. 20 students, 10 from Russia, 10 from India, brought together for this Q&A session with Prime Minister Modi and President Putin. It's a joint venture that's in the works between the Untitled Innovation Mission of India, or AIM, and Sirius, which is a similar organization in Russia. It's a unique gesture that you're witnessing right now, and both Putin and Modi wrapping that up and moving on to their next engagement. We have Siddhant Sibbal, Wion correspondent, joining us live for the latest. Siddhant, this joint venture of Untitled Innovation Mission and Sirius is done and dusted with a very special Q&A session, with students, 20 high school students from India and Russia. Talk to us, what next for Modi and Putin?
Well, the next big event will be the business event in which the President of Russia and Prime Minister Narendra Modi will participate in a short while from now at the same location. But we have a another breaking which happened in the last 20 minutes or so. US has reacted on the deal being signed. A statement has been issued by the US Embassy here in New Delhi, who have said that we cannot prejudge any sanctions decision. Reacting on whether India will be given a waiver or not, the US has said that we cannot prejudge. The US Embassy said that the waiver authority is not for a specific blanket waiver, it's a transaction specific. There are strict criteria for considering a waiver. Waiver of CATSA under Section 231 will be considered on transaction-by-transaction basis. So, US Embassy clearly mum on whether the waiver will be given or not. But of course, there is the reaction, the first reaction by the US government, the US Embassy reacting. They also explained the intent of CATSA. They said the intent of our implementation of CATSA is to impose cost on Russia for its malign behavior, including by stopping the flow of money to Russian defense sector. CATSA is not intended to impose damages to military capabilities of our allies. That's an important statement. The US is saying that CATSA is not intended to impose damage to the military capabilities of our allies or partners. Clearly, there is a hint that India can be given the waiver by the US administration. That will bring relief to many here in New Delhi. But other than that, I have carefully studied the joint statement also. In the joint statement, there has been a mention of cross-border terror, and India and Russia saying that there should not be any double standards on terrorism. The exact words are that sides condemned all form of state sponsorship to terrorists, including cross-border terrorism, and providing safe haven to terrorists and their networks. So without mentioning Pakistan, India and Russia lashing out at countries who provide safe havens to terrorist groups, clearly it shows that Moscow and New Delhi are on the same page when it comes to cross-border terror, especially cross-border terror emanating from Pakistan. And another key highlight of the joint statement is that India has backed India's entry into the NSG, into the nuclear suppliers group. That is another big outcome. But the big outcome coming on Pakistan, that Russia and India clearly saying that cross-border terror, it's something that needs to be dealt with, and there should not be any dual or double standards on that.
Siddhant Sibbal, Wion correspondent, joining us for that breaking news update. Siddhant, so let's quickly, for all those who've just tuned in, the story that Siddhant has just broken here on Wion is that now, while India has gone ahead with the S-400 deal, despite the threat of US sanctions, the United States Embassy has now reacted to the deal. The statement reads, and I quote, "The intent of our implementation of CATSA is to impose costs on Russia for its malign behavior, including by stopping the flow of money to Russia's defense sector. CATSA is not intended to impose damage to the military capabilities of our allies or partners. The waiver authority is not for a blanket waiver. It is transaction specific. There are strict criteria for considering a waiver. Waivers of CATSA Section 231 will be considered on a transaction-by-transaction basis. We cannot prejudge any sanctions decisions. That's the statement that the United States Embassy has released. Siddhant Sibal brought us that piece of breaking news right here. And Siddhant, India, on the other hand, even before this statement came out, has gone ahead and signed the deal. And that is the significance of this Putin-Modi meeting, because this meeting, so many things on the table, but clearly what stands out is India going ahead with the S-400 purchase. And also the latest from that joint statement that you've been telling us is that both India and Russia are very clear when it comes to cross-border terror. So whatever the relationship that Russia and Pakistan might have, this bilateral summit still sends a very strong message, not just from Russia, but Russia and India put together.
Well, a strong message from Moscow and New Delhi to Islamabad when it comes to cross-border terror. Clearly, India having more allies, especially on the issue of cross-border terror, an issue that has been causing a problem not only for India but also for Afghanistan. We saw at the UNGA statement India strongly mentioning not only about the cross-border terror emanating from Pakistan, but also about the dual standards of Islamabad, especially when it comes to good terrorism and bad terrorism. But other than this big development, there was this fear about US sanctions on India because of the S-400 deal. The deal is done now. The deal has been quietly signed here in New Delhi. No mention by the leaders, but there was the mention of the deal and the joint statement. And now US reacting. US is quick to react on the entire developments here in New Delhi, which of course has been positive development for New Delhi. US clearly saying that, hinting basically that there can be a waiver, though not categorically saying that we cannot prejudge the decision, but saying that we will take into concerns issues of our allies and partners. And India has been an ally of Washington. Last month, this week, we saw how 2+2 dialogue happened and how there was an engagement between New Delhi and Washington, and both were on a common ground, on the same page when it comes to issues concerning both, especially at a time when China has become so assertive by its nature. We saw Doklam happening, even though India and China have been engaging with each other, but there is of course unease remains of the growing Chinese influence in the region. Though India got positive news from Maldives how there has been a change of regime, but still India will be wary of China, and so is Washington, and that is why both the countries are trying to engage with each other, with like-minded countries such as Australia and Japan, to form a Quad. Also, the Quad meeting is also expected to happen very soon. But right now, big news coming that Washington has reacted on S-400 deal, a deal that will give a boost to India's security and defense architecture.
That's right. While all talk is about how the US is viewing this India-Russia summit, as you've been telling us, Siddhant, China also is an important player in this scheme of things, and China has its own relationship with Russia that's evolving further, it's growing further. They're sort of coming together as a bloc to counter the dominance of Western powers, and therein lies India. Same time when the US is using India to counterbalance the dominance of China.
Well, rightly said, there is this new alignment which is coming when it comes to global powers, whether it's India or US or whether it's Russia or China. Though Russia, China and India are part of another grouping called the RIC grouping, whose meeting will be happening very soon. But the focus, of course, is to make sure that the national interest is kept foremost. That remains the priority for New Delhi. And by signing this deal, India has sent a message to world capitals, to Beijing, to Moscow and Washington, that when it comes to national interest, when it comes to national security, New Delhi will make sure that that remains a priority. And that is why New Delhi went ahead with Russia, despite knowing that sanctions will follow. come what may, national security remains the topmost priority, and that is why New Delhi signed that S-400 deal, that deal which of course gives India an edge. Interestingly, China also has S-400, and Americans slapped sanctions on the Chinese because of this deal, but Americans will be wary to put sanctions on New Delhi, given the fact that New Delhi has been an ally along with Indonesia and Vietnam. Interestingly, the Defense Secretary of United States of America, Mr. Mattis, himself gave this suggestion that India should be given a waiver, and this, of course, there are many takers of this suggestion in Washington.
Siddhant Sibbal joining us live with the latest updates on Russia's President Vladimir Putin's India visit. Thank you, Siddhant. It's time now to listen in to what Putin and Modi had to say after holding delegation-level talks. They did have a joint statement, Russia's president, stressing on the defense cooperation between the two countries. Listen in.
Decades, Russia and India have been cooperating successfully in this area. We enjoy a truly close and mutually beneficial relationship, which is an inalienable part of the Russian-Indian strategic partnership.
हमारा अंतरिक्ष में अगला लक्ष्य भारत के गगनयान में भारतीय अंतरिक्ष यात्री को भेजना है। मुझे बहुत खुशी है कि आपने इस मिशन में रूस के पूरे सहयोग का आश्वासन दिया है।
So what exactly is the S-400 missile system? S-400 Triumph air defense missile system has got a target range of 400 kilometers. It can hit 300 simultaneous targets. Also, 72 guided missiles can simultaneously be launched from the system. The system has been operational since 2007 and China was its first buyer. It can prepare any military for defense against strategic aircraft, electronic warfare planes, spy planes and tactical aircraft.